Hello, welcome to Loremaster's Lair. I'm your Loremaster, here today with the general release of Rage of Elements coming just around the corner. However, instead of planes, we'll be dealing with a country on the material plane today, with a strong connection to Genie. I know we've covered many already, but we have yet to dip into the impossible lands. Welcome to Jalmeray, everyone. Jalmeray is an island off the coast of Garund in the Obari Ocean. Long ago it was inhabited by its own people, the Sunghoi. Then, one day, visitors from Vudra sailed by to open diplomatic channels with the nation of Nex, headed by Maharaja Kenin Sald. One way or another, the visitors would leave with the island as a gift, which, with the help of genie magic, they molded into an island of breathtaking beauty. And then they left back home. It stays for centuries like this until the Orclords were forced to flee during a domestic dispute in their home nation, during which time they took the liberty of wiping out the native population. Their rule would end when the descendants of Kenin Sald returned and used the genie army to take the island back by force. Since then, the location has prospered, both through its location serving for trade, but also its unique culture enticing visitors who to them Vudra is too far away. When it comes to people, Jalmeray is a melting pot. Here the people who are often found on the mainland are more of a minority, while influence of distant Vudra is what shapes the makeup. Putting into recent topics, the island has been connected to Genie for centuries, and Geniekind of all kinds can be found here. Ancestries common to Vudra, the Vanara and Vishkanya, can be found in greater numbers here than anywhere else in the Inner Sea region. Nagas have traveled here from their kingdoms, bringing Nagaji with them. Fiends more common in the east, Azuras and Rakshasas, operate here, in some places in the open, and their offspring also find their place upon the island. Which seems like a good time as any to have our first side tangent, the part of the show where we look into the newest of the new, fresh off the presses. After spending 4 videos talking about Genie, we have new information about changes to the game. So let's go through the new names one by one, since this is the first day of sticking to them. First, Airjin are called Jothums, manifestations of heaviness weighing upon a person, referring to a wide range of spirits like each other. Orfjin are now Jabali, named for, at least as far as I can tell, a holy man in the Ramayana. Wadajins are Faidhan, a male name in Islam-controlled areas, and one that means to give charity to the point of overflow. Not sure if Paizo had a specific Faidhan in mind or they're just going for the pun. Either way. And finally, fire takes a general Ifrit as opposed to the specific Efrit, with the Geniekind now being known as Nari, a Sanskrit word for woman. Again, this might be in reference to a specific Nari, but I do not have enough context to track that down. Now we'll be covering plenty of locations today, but let's start off on the periphery, the 4 small islands surrounding the large one. Starting with the one northeast of the island, we have Go Villa, which the people of Jalmeray use to quarantine the sick and cursed, as you do. The other 3 are to the west, all clumped in the Bagir Bay. Northernmost is Videsha, the island which was originally the capital before Niswan was founded. Grand Suret is known for its conservatory, where bardic arts, culinary skills, and, for advanced students, culinary intrigue can be learned. Finally, the former island of Kana Kataka, which was where the Ark Lords moved the natives of the island before eradicating them, island and all. Ghosts and terrible echoes of spells haunt the area, where some stones of the island still manage to peek above the waves. The most important landmark on the island is the River Sald, which flows down into the Bengali Bay. At the river's head is the Temple of the Maharaja, built back at the original founding of Jalmeray, a temple devoted to many Rudrani deities with Aurori, of course, at the center. South of the river are the Rani Fields, where horses are ranched and the local Thunder Cavalry get their mounts. There are two jungles on the island, the southern Sengen jungle, shaped by Jinn to resemble Rudra, and the Jasi jungle of the north, retaining pre-settlement flora and fauna. Finally, deep in the Jasi jungle is the White Stone Temple, devoted to Zoology, the Rudra deity of poisons, though a Rakshasa has recently taken over for himself. Now we have two large cities to go through today, so where should we start? Let's change it up a bit and start with the capital, instead of saving it for last. Niswan. The city is a melting pot to those who wish to learn and grow, finding different paths through life. Even Rakshasa and Asuras operate in the open here. There are various shrines in town to the hundreds of Rudrani deities, as well as deities from the west, and let's not forget some new philosophies which originated from the city. But it is working hard, pushing your body, mind, and soul to the limits, which brings life to the city of pagodas. It is always just a question if you know what you are looking for. There is little in Jalmeray of central authority. The island's leader, the Takard, which serves as a sort of central leader, takes on a nominal role and rules with tolerance. Still, they stand as supreme, if lacks authority, and it is they who are surrounded by many advisors who try to pull him in some sort of direction. These advisors are known as the Maryan Ram. For the city itself, the Takara chooses the person best suited to act as Nagrapati, which is similar to the town's mayor, and whose job is to keep the city running. And under the mayor are various roles to help delegate the governance. The Saji, or admiral, the Kulput, or guard captain, and the Zwairara, or coinmaster. The people of Niswan do nothing by half measure, whether it be their bartering or their prayers, and it is understandable that one experiencing it for the first time might get a bit startled. However, as a city where fiends are allowed to walk in the open, the people are expecting the visitors and people different from themselves, and will instantly try to invite people to a festival the moment they lock eyes. Fashion around here is loose and, well, colorful. Don't have that on me. With heavy decorations and jewelry regardless of gender. Long hair is also in. As always, the largest share of the population is human, the largest of that being Rudrani. But we also have other human ancestries, including the Sanghari, because the Ark Lords can never finish anything. Other ancestries in Rudra are common sights, Vanara operating across the city, and Vishkanya actually coming out of the shells within the city limits. And even the rare Kushrashi are found here. And then of course we have the Geniekind, the ones who shaped the island and their Geniekind ancestors. The city is set on tiers, with the Takar's palace at the top, where Takar Kashran himself rules. Just below is the heights, where the nobles and elite guard live. One step lower is the High Holy District, where one will find the largest concentration of temples and shrines. and one step lower is the Grand Chronicle Circle, where one will find pretty much the same, but with books. It is on the same level where one will also find the homes of the Moroyam and the Houses of Perfection. We'll get to those in a minute. Then the last 3 steps are what ones one would expect from every large city. The Commerce District, followed by the Harbor District, and finally the Foreigners District. Of course, there is one thing I would like to focus on before we leave town. Houses of Perfection. These 3/4 monasteries, all devoted to finding higher understanding in both enlightenment as well as a physical might through the use of martial arts, devoted to the elements. These are then tested every decade in what is known as the Challenge of Sky and Heaven, a test of unarmed combat, weapons, arcane, occult, philosophy, and discipline. But even getting into one of these monasteries is difficult. The Monastery of Unblinking Fire, which learns more in the occult, requires one to win a battle of wits against an Efreet. The Monastery of Unfolded Wind, which eschews weapons for unarmed might, requires one to race a Jothum. Doesn't say you need to win, you need to race. The Monastery of Untwisted Iron, in turn, focuses on weapon training, and requires one to test their physical skills against a Jabari. Finally, the recently rediscovered Monastery of the Unbreakable Waves still is lacking of its own focus, but does require one to prove one's flexibility to a Vedhana. Which brings us to our second side tangent, and us diving deeper into our newest book. Well, kind of. Range of Elements has highlighted the different elemental cycles of both the Western 4 elements and the Eastern 5 elements. And deep in the covers, it also talks about other systems. The Minkai/Japan focuses on similar 4 to the Western plus Void, as seen in the writings of the swordsman Miyamoto Musashi. And Vuja also has 5 elements, including the Aether of the ethereal plane. However, let us look deeper into the concept of Aether. Aether originated as a concept in Greek mythology, being the pure air deities breathe as opposed to that we humans breathe. And of course, it being the Greek pantheon, they even had a god of it. As time went on, the philosopher Plato wrote on Aether, and from there, some alchemists' theories would connect it to what they call quintessence, meaning the 5th element. Though ideas of what quintessence was would change and vary across different systems, eventually it would end up connected with spirit or life force, which leads to what we usually currently have in games. However, when one looks at Aether itself, it in turn is usually connected instead to sky or the heavens, as opposed to the air and wind that we have down here, which, when we look at the House of Perfection and the test of sky and heaven, that kind of fits, doesn't it? Now, on to the other side of the island, which stands the town of Pada Hanam. Once just a small fishing village centuries ago, a mysterious structure known as the Murmur Tower appeared overnight, inviting in adventurers and casting dark shadows over the village. While most adventurers now know to steer clear, the initial influx as well as the fact that the local harbor is slightly more convenient to stop for people first coming from the east, this has put the town on the map. It only has about 7,000 people, mind you, but this one is 10,000, so it's pretty decent for a medieval-esque setting. The local government is run by the head noble house of the region. The current one in control of the city, the Zemindar, is an Nagaji philosopher Bajram, who does all he can to keep the peace of the city, knowing how badly it will reflect on his kind if he did anything untoward. However, the other noble house of the city conspire against him anyway, many of them not happy about any non-human being in the position, and not happy that the current rules are loosening the caste system. There is also a system where justice is taken care of by a community organization made up of priests of 5 different deities. Through the examining of the accused's actions compared to the holy teachings of Vinchagvasky, Ravita, Janasini, Gruhasta, and Mathravash, almost had them all. Mathravash, the demonic Trisatras will work to see justice done, even if trial by combat is necessary. Which, speaking of Ravita, I said it right the first time. Ravirthra, the chalice bearer, Rudrani deity of Naga and Apollo Karma, she would, of course, makes a perfect third side tangent. Once she was tasked with upholding of universal karma. As part of this, she was tasked to guard the Chalice of Amrite, an artifact which can see all possibilities of an individual's soul. However, through a plot by the goddess of corruption, she was tempted to look in. This one moment distracted her enough to see the chalice stolen and her beheaded, but she refused to die. Driven by duty and a new willingness to be as cruel as necessary in order to accomplish her task, she even now searches for the chalice she is meant to protect, while making enemies of those who would keep it from her and her Naga kin. The local style is more practical clothing, always ready to work or to get wet, considering the weather and how close to the sea they are. They like colors and patterns, but shows of wealth like jewelry are not common around here. Humans have the largest population here, but there are plenty of inhabitants from the east who have made the area their home. The Nagaji tend to be from families not connected to Naga supremacy, and more in line with families of mariners who grew up on the ocean or on the docks. Most Nagas also believe themselves separate from the cruelties of some Naga empires, and leverage their powers to the best to their city. That said, the local Vishkanya, well, they prefer to lay low around Naga. Considering the harbors are protected by a famed Fadina, there are of course many Undines in the city, some even connected with the local some even unconnected with the local crime family. I was so worried about the new Geniekind's name. One day I'll actually find out how to pronounce it. But anyway, there are not as many Vanaras who stay here as those who use the city as their first stopping place when arriving on the island. There is still a decent population at any given time. And with the mystery of the Myrmidome, Rakshasas have been more willing to act openly, if only to convince some pawns to check the structure out for them. The location of the old fishing village is now the harbor town. The wooden structure is long now since changed to stone and modernized into a bustling location it is now. It sits upon the Sea Spray Ghat, the water running through the center of the town, where many of the richest buildings sitting upon its shores. Though Zamadar's Rise, which sits on the southernmost hill, is where you'll find most of the upper class, and home of the nobles who now like the changes to the system. As for the Myrmidome, that sits to the north of the city. No one managing to successfully plunder its depths, leading to ever rumors of what lies within. To end off, we have one side tangent left, and 2 Geniekind, so let's quickly cover them. So, looking at the new Geniekind, first we have Aldane, Geniekind of Wood. Their bloodline became lost, except for some children of forest dragons and some children of the forest world. But the return of the plane has had their recessive traits spring back to life. They look like whatever their mortal ancestry is, but usually green, brown, or ashy, sometimes covered in moss or bark. Hair can also be vines or leaves, and styled however you want it. Those who descend from the Genie of Wood, the Cazadors, actually have a higher chance of being the sap-connected amber souls instead of the base form. Elsewhere, being born in places of strong growth encourage one to become a spring soul, while even a blighted place can still allow a molder soul to grow. And for metal, we have the Talos. Their skin color can be any shade of metal. Same with hair, which tends to have the texture of steel wool or spun gold or even chain links. They have heavy connections to cities, and therefore almost all urbanites, though miners and the like have also adapted. They existed in the past even when the plane was locked, but since the return of the plane of metal, some people have been growing metal out of the skin rapidly. As for variants, they come about for one reason or other, having a connection to certain metals. Connection to working metals like iron or bronze gets one to be a ferrous soul. Precious metals like gold or silver gives a gilded soul, and liquid metals like mercury or gallium give one quick souls. And that brings us to the end of today's episode, as well as our look through the elemental planes. Now, we are all ready to enjoy Gen Con and our new release in all its majesty. That said, next week is an interesting week for us on the channel, so make sure to tune in next time for something just a little different. Take care.